There is one response more powerful than anger, more striking than words, and more unforgettable than confrontation. It is silence. When they reject you, they expect a reaction, an argument, maybe even your tears. But imagine if instead you give them nothing, just silence. That silence becomes their greatest confusion, their deepest regret, and your strongest advantage. Let's talk about why silence is the loudest sound they'll ever hear. Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you can shift the way you handle rejection forever. Have you ever noticed how people expect a reaction when they reject you? They wait for it, they crave it. They expect you to be angry, broken, or desperate for an explanation. But what if you gave them nothing? No words, no emotions, just silence. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It is a calculated move that forces the other person to sit in the void of their own actions. See, rejection is never just about you. It's often about their expectations, their assumptions, and their need for control. When you choose silence, you take back control. People fear silence because it demands reflection. It forces the mind to ask questions. Did I make the right decision? Why aren't they reacting? Did I really matter that little? And that is where the real impact begins. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop defending your worth, stop justifying why you deserved better, that's the moment they start feeling the weight of their decision. Now, don't get me wrong. Silence is not about ignoring people. It's about sending a message without saying a single word. Because let me tell you something, silence is loud. It lingers in the mind, it echoes in the heart, and it stays with them far longer than any argument ever could. When someone rejects you, they expect an emotional response. They expect you to plead, to explain, to try and prove your value. But when you respond with silence, it does something powerful. It flips the script. It leaves them wondering what's going on in your mind. And let me tell you, that mystery is a powerful thing. People don't realize the value of something until it's no longer chasing them, no longer seeking closure, no longer accountable. And here's the best part. Silence isn't just for them. It's for you. Because the moment you stop wasting your energy on proving yourself to people who don't appreciate you, you start reclaiming that energy for yourself. You begin focusing on your growth, your next move, your future. So the next time someone rejects you, don't rush to explain. Don't beg for an answer. Don't even let them think they shook your confidence. Just step back and watch. Let silence do the work for you. Because trust me, nothing is more unforgettable than the presence of someone who refuses to be shaken by rejection. But here's the real question. Once you've mastered the power of silence, what comes next? What is the next move that ensures you remain in control, not just of your emotions, but of the entire situation? Well, let me tell you, it's something even more powerful than silence itself. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share next will change the game completely. Listen, rejection is not the end. It is not a curse. It is not a sign that you are not good enough. Rejection is redirect. It is life saying, you were looking here, but you're meant to go there. And the problem is, most people don't see it that way. When rejection comes, most people do one of two things. They either fight for validation, trying to prove why they should have been accepted, or they break down, believing that rejection means they have failed. But what if I told you rejection is not a wall, it's a door? What if I told you it's not a stop sign, but a detour? The truth is, rejection is one of the greatest gifts you will ever receive if you learn how to respond to it correctly. And the most powerful response? Silence. Because let me tell you something. When you remain silent after rejection, you do something most people are too afraid to do. You let the rejection speak for itself. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't beg for clarity. You simply walk away and let time do the talking. And trust me, time has a way of revealing the truth. Think about it. How many times have you been rejected, only to look back months, maybe years later, and realize that rejection was actually a blessing? That person who walked away, they weren't meant for you. That job you didn't get, it wasn't your path. That opportunity that slipped away, something better was waiting. But in the moment of rejection, all you felt was pain, because pain has a way of blinding us from the bigger picture. But when you respond with silence, when you don't fight for a place where you're not wanted, when you don't chase after people who have already let you go, you allow something greater to unfold. You allow the universe, fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it, to do its job. You give space for what is meant for you to find you. And let me tell you, nothing confuses a person more than someone who does not fight rejection. Because in their mind, they expect you to react. They expect you to feel lost, to feel desperate. But when you remain silent, when you move on without hesitation, it makes them question everything. Did I make the right decision? Were they actually more valuable than I realized? What if I was wrong? And by the time they figure it out, you will be too far ahead to even care. So the next time rejection comes knocking, don't resist it. Don't fight it. Don't waste your breath trying to prove your worth. Instead, embrace it. See it for what it really is. A redirection, a shift, a divine move in your favor. But here's the real question. If rejection is redirection, then where is it leading you? What is the next step after silence? Because silence alone isn't enough. There is another move that makes silence even more powerful, and that is what I'm about to share next. Stay with me. Listen to me. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because the truth is, swords can be argued with, but silence is undeniable. It lingers, it echoes, it forces people to sit with their own thoughts, their own decisions, their own mistakes. When someone rejects you, they expect a response. They want a reaction. They want to see how much power they hold over you. And that's exactly why silence is so powerful, because it is the one response they can't control. Think about it. Words can be twisted, misunderstood, ignored, but silence is like a mirror. It makes them face themselves. It makes them question everything. Why aren't they reacting? Did they not care? Did I misjudge their value? And let me tell you, those questions are far more haunting than any words you could ever say, because silence forces them to sit in the void of your absence. It makes them realize that they didn't just reject a person, they rejected value. They rejected greatness. They rejected something they may never find again. See, people don't realize the weight of their choices until they feel the loss. They don't recognize the value of your presence until they experience your absence. And that is why silence is so powerful. It is not just the absence of words, it is the presence of mystery. And mystery makes people curious. It makes them wonder. It makes them doubt their own decisions. Because let's be real, when someone rejects you, they think they have control. They think they're making the right move. But when you respond with silence, when you don't give them the closure they expect, it shifts the power dynamic completely. Suddenly, they are the ones left wondering. They are the ones questioning. They are the ones trying to figure out if they made a mistake. And by the time they realize the truth, you've already gone. You've already moved on. You've already grown into a version of yourself that doesn't even need their approval anymore. That's why silence is not weakness. It is a weapon. It is a strategy. It is a tool that places you in control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. But here's the key. You can't just be silent. You have to be productive in your silence. You have to be building, growing, evolving while they are sitting in their confusion. Because silence without progress, that's just waiting. And you were never meant to wait, you were meant to rise. So the real question is, what do you do while you're silent? How do you make sure your silence isn't just empty but powerful? Well, let me tell you, the next step is the one that truly changes the game. And once you understand it, you will never look at rejection the same way again. Stay with me. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is something most people never understand. When someone rejects you, they think they've figured you out. They think they know how you'll respond. They expect disappointment, anger, maybe even desperation. They believe they've left you weakened. But the moment you respond with silence, the moment you show no emotion, no reaction, no need for their validation, that's when confusion sets in. See, people are wired to expect predictable responses. They reject you, they expect you to seek closure. They walk away, they expect you to chase. But when none of that happens, when they see you standing tall, unmoved, unaffected, it shakes them. It makes them question. It leaves them in a state of uncertainty. And uncertainty is powerful because when people are uncertain, they start to doubt. They start to wonder if they made the right choice. They start to realize that maybe, just maybe, they misjudged you. You see, silence isn't just about not speaking. It's about creating a void that forces the other person to fill in the blanks. And here's the secret. They won't fill it with facts. They will fill it with their own insecurities, their own fears, their own regrets. And the longer you remain silent, the louder that confusion grows. They'll start checking your social media, trying to see if you're struggling. But instead, they'll see you thriving. They'll ask about you, expecting to hear that you've been broken, but instead they'll hear that you've elevated. And that, my friend, is where true influence begins. Because you haven't said a single word, and yet they can't stop thinking about you. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games. This is about understanding that true power comes from within. It's about realizing that you don't need to prove anything to anyone, your growth, your peace, your success. That is the only response you ever need. Because while they are sitting in confusion, trying to figure out why you're not reacting the way they expected, you are moving forward. You are building yourself into someone even greater. So the real question is, what do you do next? How do you turn this silence, this power, this newfound control into something even more impactful? Because silence alone isn't enough. It's what you do with it that determines everything. And what I'm about to tell you next, it's the step that will make them not only confused, but regret ever rejecting you in the first place. Stay with me. Listen to me. Strength isn't always loud. It isn't always about fighting to be heard. True strength is often quiet. It's the kind of strength that doesn't beg, doesn't argue, doesn't plead for recognition. It simply exists. And that alone is enough. When you've been rejected, when someone has walked away, when doors have been shut in your face, the world expects you to react. They expect frustration, anger, maybe even desperation. But the moment you choose silence, the moment you refuse to give them the reaction they were waiting for, you become powerful in a way they never saw coming. Because let me tell you something, silence is not weakness. It is a weapon. And the reason most people underestimate it is because they don't understand its effect. Silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to sit in their own decisions, in their own words, and their own choices, without you giving them an escape. You see, when you argue, when you explain, when you try to defend yourself, you give them an opportunity to dismiss you. But when you say nothing, when you simply walk away head held high as if their rejection was nothing but a passing breeze, that's when they start to wonder. That's when they start to doubt. Did I make the right choice? Why aren't they affected? Were they stronger than I thought? And that's exactly why silence is so powerful, because it makes them think. And the more they think, the more they realize what they lost. But here's the catch. Silence alone is not enough. It only works when it is backed by growth. You see, if you're silent but stagnant, if you're quiet but not moving forward, then your silence is empty. But when you are silent and you're building, when you are silent and you're elevating, that's when silence becomes a force. Because while they're wondering about you, you're evolving. While they're trying to figure out if they made a mistake, you're becoming someone they will never have access to again. And let me tell you, that's when regret sets in. That's when the same people who rejected you, the same people who walked away, the same people who thought they had the upper hand, suddenly wish they had handled things differently. Because now, they don't just see silence, they see success, they see confidence, they see someone who didn't break, who didn't fall apart, who didn't need their validation to become great. But here's the real question. What happens after the silence? Once you've mastered the art of silence, once you've built yourself in the background, what do you do when they start to notice, when they start to come back? Because trust me, they will. And how you handle that moment, that's the next step. Stay with me. Listen to me. They always come back. Always. It might take weeks. It might take months. It might even take years. But at some point, the same people who rejected you, the same people who thought you weren't valuable enough, the same people who walked away without a second thought will start to notice. Because here's the truth. Growth is louder than words. Success speaks louder than explanations. When you responded to rejection with silence, when you walked away without pleading, when you chose to evolve instead of argue, you triggered something powerful. You made them curious. And curiosity is a dangerous thing. You see, when someone rejects you, they expect you to disappear. They assume you'll be broken. They assume you'll be waiting. But when time passes and they realize you didn't just move on, you leveled up, that's when the regret sets in. They start checking in, watching from a distance, asking about you, trying to figure out how you managed to rise without them. And then one day they return. Maybe they send a message. Maybe they start liking your posts. Maybe they accidentally run into you. But make no mistake, it's not by coincidence. It's because the tables have turned. Now you hold the power. Now you are the one they seek. Now you have become what they never expected. Untouchable. But here's the real question. What do you do when they come back? Because this is the moment that defines everything. Do you let them in? Do you welcome them back? Do you give them the access they once took for granted? Or do you recognize that their return is not about you, but about them? See, people don't come back because they suddenly became better. They come back because they see what they lost. They come back because they realize that you were never the problem, they were. But hear me when I say this. Just because someone realizes your value now doesn't mean they deserve access to you again. Because the version of you that exists today, the one that grew in silence, that built in the background, that rose from rejection, that version of you is not for everyone. And the moment you understand that, you will never be afraid of rejection again. So the question is, when they return, how do you respond? How do you handle the moment when the people who once overlooked you suddenly want to be a part of your life again? Because there is a right way to handle it and a wrong way. And what I'm about to share next, it will ensure that you never lose control again. Stay with me. Listen, this moment right here, this is the test. When they come back, when the ones who rejected you suddenly start reaching out, when the people who once overlooked you now want your attention, how you respond will determine everything. Because let me tell you something, this isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about proving to yourself that you have grown, that you are no longer the same person who once sought their approval, that their absence did not break you, it built you. See, most people make one of two mistakes when the past comes knocking. Some people get excited. They feel validated. They say, see, I knew they would come back, and in excitement, they open the door, forgetting why it was closed in the first place. Others let bitterness take over. They want revenge. They say, now it's my turn to reject them. They respond with anger, with arrogance, with the need to make the other person feel what they once felt. But let me tell you something. Both of these responses are a trap. Because the truth is, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to throw their rejection back in their face. And you definitely don't need to let them back in just because they suddenly realized your worth. You see, the most powerful response is not emotional. It's not about pride. It's about discernment. It's about asking yourself one simple question. Does this person deserve access to the new version of me? Because let's be real, most people don't change. Most people don't come back because they genuinely want to add value to your life. They come back because they feel the void you left. They see you thriving and they want a piece of it. They remember the value you brought and they want to benefit from it again. But here's the key. Your value was never meant to be a revolving door. You are not an option. You are not a backup plan. You are not someone who should be entertained when it's convenient for them. So when they come back, don't get emotional. Don't get arrogant. Just observe. Let their actions speak louder than their words. Look at their patterns, not their promises. Because people will say anything when they realize they've lost something valuable. But the question is, do they deserve a seat at your table again? And if the answer is no, then your response is simple. You keep moving, you keep building, you keep rising. No anger, no bitterness, just a clear understanding that not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next season. But here's the real challenge. What happens when you do let someone back in? Because sometimes the past returns, but this time for the right reasons. So how do you know the difference? How do you know who is worth another chance and who is simply trying to re-enter your life out of regret? Well, that's what I'm about to tell you next. Stay with me. Listen carefully. Not everyone who returns deserves a second chance. Or Authenticity. Some people come back because they truly regret their actions, because they've grown, because they've realized your value and are ready to honor it. But others, they come back because they see your progress, they feel your absence, and they want to benefit from what you've built without putting in the work to earn their place. So how do you know the difference? How do you know who is genuine and who is just looking for another opportunity to take advantage of your kindness? The answer is simple. Watch. Don't just listen. See, when someone is truly changed, when someone has genuinely learned from their mistakes, they don't just come back with words, they come back with actions. They don't just apologize, they take responsibility. They don't just say they miss you, they prove why they deserve another chance. But here's where most people go wrong. They let their emotions make the decision. They hear, I miss you. They hear, I was wrong. They hear, I've changed. And because it feels good to be wanted, they open the door too soon. But let me ask you, what has really changed? Are they coming back because they see you differently or because they see what you have now? Are they coming back because they want to add to your life or because they want to take from it? Because let me tell you something. True change is not about words. It's about consistency. It's about proving over time that they are different. And if someone truly values you, they will prove it even if it takes time. So here's the rule. You don't let people back in immediately. You don't hand them the same access they once had. You observe. You test their intentions. You let their patterns reveal their truth. Because trust me, time will expose everything. And if they truly deserve to be back in your life, they will be patient. They will be consistent. They will understand that trust is not given freely. It is earned. But if they start getting frustrated, if they try to rush the process, if they start acting entitled to your time, your energy, your presence, that's your answer. They haven't changed. They just want convenience, not connection. Because real relationships, whether friendships, business partnerships, or even romance, are built on mutual respect. And if someone couldn't respect your value before, why should they suddenly have access to it now? So the real question is, when you finally make that decision, when you decide who stays and who goes, how do you protect yourself moving forward? How do you make sure that you never fall into the same cycle again? Because if you don't learn this next step, history will repeat itself. And trust me, you don't want that. Stay with me. Listen, if you don't learn the lesson, life will make you repeat it. You can't keep going in circles, letting the same kind of people in, falling for the same words, ignoring the same red flags, and expecting a different outcome. If you don't change the way you protect yourself, the same cycles will follow you no matter how much you grow, no matter how successful you become. So how do you break the cycle? How do you make sure that once you've outgrown certain people, certain mindsets, and certain situations, you never have to deal with them the same way again? The answer is simple. Boundaries. Because hear me when I say this, it's not about cutting people off emotionally, it's about positioning yourself strategically. It's about knowing who to let close and who to keep at a distance. It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people, they only deserve the balcony. Others, they don't even deserve a ticket to the show. And the mistake most people make is that they try to give everyone the same level of access. They think that just because someone comes back apologizing, just because someone wants to be around again, just because someone says they've changed, they deserve full access again. But let me tell you something. Access is a privilege. And once someone has mishandled it, they should never get it back so easily. So here's what you do. You build filters because walls keep everyone out, including the good people. But filters allow you to let in the right ones while keeping the wrong ones out. So what does this look like? It means you observe patterns before you trust words. It means you test consistency before you believe promises. It means you don't just let people in based on emotions, you let them prove their worth over time. Because let me tell you something, anyone can act right for a moment. Anyone can say the right things for a few weeks. But the people who truly value you, they'll show it in a way that lasts. And let me say this, having boundaries does not make you rude. It does not make you arrogant. It does not mean you are bitter or unforgiving. It simply means you respect yourself enough to protect your peace. Because if you keep allowing the wrong people into your space, into your mind, into your emotions, it's only a matter of time before they start draining you again. And the moment you start feeling drained, that's your sign that you're giving too much to people who deserve too little. So the question is, once you've built these boundaries, once you've protected your space, what do you focus on next? Because this final step, it's the one that will determine whether you just survive your past or whether you thrive beyond it. Stay with me. Listen, survival is not the goal. Thriving is. You didn't go through all of this just to stay guarded. You didn't endure rejection, silence, and transformation just to exist in a state of protection. No. You went through it so you could grow into something greater. Because let me tell you something, rejection was never meant to break you. It was meant to redirect you. It was meant to show you who was meant to be in your life and who was never supposed to have access to you in the first place. But now that you've cut the dead weight, now that you've protected your energy, your mind, your purpose, what comes next? You build, you create, you walk into the future with confidence, knowing that you are no longer held back by the fear of losing people who were never meant to stay. Because the truth is, when you finally stop chasing the approval of others, when you stop worrying about who left, who ignored you, who underestimated you, you make space for something greater. You open yourself up to real connections. You attract people who see your value from the start, who don't need to lose you to realize what you're worth. And that is the key. Because you don't need to prove yourself to those who rejected you. You don't need to explain yourself to those who didn't see your worth. You don't need to waste your energy on people who only realized your value after you walked away. You just need to keep moving forward, keep building, keep evolving, keep becoming the best version of yourself, and watch how the right people align with your life without you having to beg for it. So let me ask you this. Are you ready? Are you ready to step into a season where you are no longer bound by the opinions of those who couldn't see your worth? Are you ready to embrace the power of silence, of discernment, of self-respect? Because if you are, then your future is waiting. And trust me, it's greater than anything you've left behind.